Today's message from Reverend Christian Sorensen was recorded April 9th, 2017, and it's titled, The Science of the Absolute. I am the point of divine expression. Come visit us at seasidecenter.org, and you can join us in Encinitas, California on a Sunday sometime, where we always have great music, a spirited message, and a joyful, loving, vibrant community that await you.
All right. Good morning, Seaside. It is my honor to introduce our guest artists, and we love when they're here. We have a wonderful dynamic duo that are sharing their beautiful message through song. They do have CD with them, and they are working on some new songs as well. So if you are moved by their music and their message, please see them after the service. And also excited to share that they're going to be celebrating their 30-year wedding anniversary soon, very soon. But you guys have a way to go to catch up with Hollis and Eugenia. Well, they were going on 73 years, I think.
74 years.
74 years, so you guys have a way to go. But, we honor that as well, as always. So we're going to do a song. They've asked me to sing along, so I'm honored to sing with them. And please help me welcome Cahill and Delene.
1, 2, 3, 4.
It's Palm Sunday, but it's also Reggae Sunday, apparently.
Well, I have never seen a white man, and I have never seen a black man. Never met a yellow woman, and not a purple, red, or blue man. We are all just different shades of brown, dark and light, not black or white. We stand on common ground. We are all just different shades of brown, dark and light, not black or white. We stand on common ground. Well, I have never seen a green man, no orange, no tangerine man. I know at times we've all been blue, man, but it seems to me we're all just human. We are all just different shades of brown, dark and light, not black or white. We stand on common ground. We are all just different shades of brown, but dark and light, not black or white. We stand on common ground. Mr. Bassman. Maybe on the chessboard the pieces are black and white. Maybe on the keyboard the keys are black and white. Are you living in your left brain? Well, black and white are fast. We're moving to your right brain. Ooh, ooh, ooh. For all our shades of brown, yeah. We are all just different shades of brown, dark and light, not black or white. We stand on common ground. We are all just different shades of brown, dark and light, not black or white. We stand on common ground. Whatever skin tone on the outside, whatever differences we can't hide. Remember every human worldwide. The blood runs red here on the inside. white, we stand on common ground. We are all just different shades of brown. Dark and light, not black or white, we stand on common ground. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, hey, let's see. So we got today going on Palm Sunday, as well as Passover that's coming up. So if I can weave Passover and Palm Sunday in there, that's pretty good. Maybe I'll throw in a little Buddhist and Taoist and some Zen. And that would make a complete message for this morning, right? See if I can get on there. You guys pay attention. We'll see. But so anyway, Palm Sunday, that's the day supposedly that Jesus made this triumph. Jerusalem. Okay. And, you stop to think, it was a good day, It's like people are singing Hosanna. It's like his mic was working and things were good. But, by the end of the week, things have changed, right? It's like this week, beginning of the week, it's good. By the end of the week, it's not so good. And really, I think a part of that story is that his entry was really one of not a triumph over the priests or the Pharisee or even the Roman Empire. Is really more of a triumph over his own doubts and his own fears. He walked in with a sense of self-confidence. He wasn't taunting or flaunting who he was. And probably, if you take a look at the historical aspect of things, that those priestly class or the Roman class really didn't even know who he was. They didn't have internet back then. And so basically what you had is this annual free feast called Passover. And all the people from the countrysides would come into the big city for this big festival that was going on. And every year they probably had the newest hot speaker on the circuit that was coming in, and he was the one making the triumphant entry into the town. And so really, the Roman Empire really didn't care. They didn't really notice. And so the entry was that it was triumph over his fear, of his thoughts, of his doubts. And that concept isn't new. You can take a look at, Shakespeare in his play Merchant, where he said, "Doubts are our traitors, and will make us lose. He's got some unique words in there. Will make us lose off might. You know what? I'm starting over. Let's see if it comes out this way. That's it. Might. Okay. Doubts are the traitors and will make us often lose what we will have won without even trying. That's not what he said. But anyway. I've actually got written down, though I can't read it very well. He said, our thoughts are traitors and make us lose the good we often might win by fearing to attempt. There you go. We fear to even attempt what's going on here. And the challenge often comes in our life is we will get to that point where we will have to come to a point where we're going to have to risk it all. We're going to have to decide, am I going to make this triumphant entry into Jerusalem? Am I going to overcome my doubts and my fears and come on in and be willing to risk it all? Have you ever come to that point in your life where you had to risk it all to put it out there? Your love or your thought or your proposal or your idea, or you stood exposed and vulnerable and naked before the world and said, you know what, I'm willing still to put it out there, because in the moment of crisis is the seed of opportunity that is seeking to be cracked open and glow. And so when we begin to recognize that, you know what, I have got to trust the absolute. And this morning is about the absolute. This morning is about that which is infinite and absolute and in and through all things. And this infinite intelligence knows exactly what I need to do to express the greater good in my life. But I want to not fully surrender. It's like, Spirit, I'm going to give it up about this much just as long as you do this for me. You know? It's like I'm thinking I can boss around the universe. to do what it is I want. And so what happens is our upset comes when we assume that things are supposed to be a certain way in our life. Have you noticed that? Things are supposed to be a certain way, and they don't turn out that way, and you get upset. You get anger. You get resentment. You get who knows all sorts of feelings that come up. And so here's a good way to pray, is to recognize that, you know what, I don't need to tell the infinite intelligence that guides the universe how to do something. What I want to do is begin to embrace those qualities of the absolute, of the divine. What I want to do is begin to embrace that presence of God and recognize that if I can understand and embrace the qualities of peace or inner peace or the harmony or the well-being or the sense of being home or my perfect place or a healthy body or the wholeness or the abundance, these divine qualities will know how to show up in my life, and that absolute has infinite ways and capacities beyond my ability to control things that can happen when I am willing to surrender to that. But that's the big thing, is I'm the one who's got to be willing to surrender and let go. And so the crisis allows me to recognize that there's something greater here. And if I can give up having to be in charge and to boss the spirit around and just let it emerge, I can relax. I can chill out. I saw a bumper sticker that said, "Once I gave up hope, everything was okay." And that for me, it is saying that once I was willing to give up the control and trust in the absolute, trust in the infinite, trust in the greater possibility to show up in my life and know how to show up, Spirit is going to show up and do me right. It's going to do me good if I can let go of that. And so being able to have it happen is I've got to have that shift in the way I think it has to be. I saw this cute little couple lines about a monkey, and it says, "What in the world said I to the monkey when I saw it take the fish out of the lake and put it in the tree? To which he said, I was saving the fish from drowning." You know, we got to remember the light that gives the eagle the great sight is what will blind the owl. You know, just because I think I would drown in water doesn't mean everybody's going to drown in water. Just because you are in a dynamic in your world doesn't mean you're going to drown in that dynamic in your world. Just because somebody else's life is looking a certain way, it doesn't mean that has to be your way or that way is wrong. Can I begin to embrace the greater possibility, because I am believing in Spirit as absolute, in and through all things, seeking to express itself through the diversity of channels. Ernest Holmes, he's our founder, right? Who said, hey, this was not a revelation given to me behind a secret curtain or veil, but rather it's a compilation of that common thread of truth that seems to run itself through all the great religions. And one of those things that he talked about was a description for God, calling it the absolute. And so you'll find his description in the glossary, and it's the very first word. And usually when somebody puts something first, it means it's the most important. But all it means here is that it starts with A and B, the absolute, which means the unconditioned, that which nothing can limit, that which forever transcends any conceivable limitation or determination. The absolute is unconditioned, it is perfect, it is self-existent, self-sufficient, and it's often used as a synonym for God. And the truth is that the absolute is, and it remains unaffected by the opinions or the desires or the beliefs of anyone. Got that? Unconditioned. You can't limit it with your beliefs or your determinations. It is absolute. Emerson also talked about the oversoul as being absolute. And the science of the absolute is saying, okay, it's going to show up here in the midst of this challenge or this situation or this glory. Because as good as it gets, this too shall pass. As rough as it gets, this too shall pass. And can I let go and trust that there's something greater than what my controlling mind thinks it should be or how it could be or what it should look like? The Tao, actually the Tao Te Ching, it says, when I can let go of what I am, I can become what I'm meant to be. When I can let go of what it is I have, I can receive what it is I need. That's the Tao, the flow. If I can just let go of that something and recognize that there's something more, but I've got to let go, even if it's good. For the greater good to emerge, I have to be willing to let go. You've probably heard this well-told story about how they would catch monkeys in the jungles. The hunters would get a gourd, the gourds that have a big bottom and a little neck, and they would put a banana inside the gourd. And so a monkey would come by, they could smell the banana, they'd look in there, oh, banana, very good. And he would stick his hand and could barely get it inside the gourd, and then get a hold of the banana, and then he tried to pull it out, and he couldn't get the banana out of the little neck of the gourd while he's holding on to the banana. And so the more he pulled, the more he got stuck, the more frustrated he got, the harder he would hold onto it as the hunter would just come along and throw the net over him and pick him up and take him away. All the monkey ever had to do was let go of that dumb banana. But he couldn't do it. And what are we holding on in our mind that is not serving us, that is taking us down, that is entrapping us, that is getting us stuck, and we won't let go? You want to experience the absolute in your life? What you have to do is a deep spiritual practice that is taught by most of the philosophies, and it is called relinquishment. You have to be willing to relinquish that banana. You've got to be willing to relinquish some of those things that you're holding on that seem like biggies that are important, or your identity. You've got to be willing to relinquish your story. You've got to be willing to relinquish your ego. You've got to be willing to relinquish the pride. You've got to be willing to relinquish your resentment. You've got to be willing to relinquish the anger. You've got to be willing to relinquish the things that are keeping you from being able to fit through the eye of the needle. Because I got to tell you, as you move down your spiritual path, it gets a little bit narrower. And for that greater yet to be, you've got to be willing to allow that Spirit to move you to somewhere you have yet to be. There's got to be space in your understanding of Spirit to show up. You've got to be willing to let go. Sometimes it looks like friends you've got to let go of that are no longer part of your new consciousness or your new way of thinking. Sometimes you've got to let go of a house if you want a greater home, or a relationship, or a job. What are you willing to relinquish so you can move triumphantly into that new phase of your life? I love the Zen story, often told of the university professor. A brilliant mind was going to a Zen master to learn about Zen. And he went to the master's house, and the Zen master brought out his teapot. And the university professor was talking about his excitement, started talking about what he knew about Zen. And the Zen master was pouring the tea into his teacup, and the professor kept talking and talking, the teacup filling up. And all of a sudden, the teacup filled to the top. And the master kept pouring, and the tea started pouring over the top. And the professor kept talking, his eyes were going, and the tea kept pouring over. He finally said, "Whoa, stop, it's full, there's no more room in there." And the master said, "Exactly, that's your story, It's just no more room in your brain. You just keep talking and talking. You've got to relinquish. You've got to relinquish the position that you have held sometimes for the greater yet to be, to emerge in your life and in your world. Angelina Jolie said that you have to be willing to leave the box you were raised in if you want to understand a bigger world. You have to be willing to leave the box you were raised in if you want to have an understanding, a greater understanding of the world. You want to have a greater understanding of the absolute? That means there's so much more than what you already know. But you got to be willing to have the space. The teacup is full. Then there isn't room to hear. When Moses went to the pharaohs and said, "Hey, free my people," he said, "Are you kidding me? I'm not going to do that." Because there was no room for a new kind of concept in which the 10 plagues came upon the Pharaoh and his people, to which he still did not respond, the Pharaoh. In our life, how bad does it have to get before you can hear that, Christian, you need to maybe relinquish your position a little bit? How bad does it need to get in your world before you're willing to get it? It wasn't until the 10th plague where the Spirit came and took all the firstborn of the Egyptians, but it passed over, hence the name, any of the Jewish people who put the blood of the spring lamb on their house, that the Spirit realized here are people that understand, the one God, the one presence, who understand the freedom and the liberation that came from that. But just because you have been liberated doesn't mean you don't still have to walk through the desert. Got that? Just because you have been freed doesn't mean that you're not going to have crisis in your world. Just because people are shouting, Hosanna, Hosanna, you made it, man. Good job. You are the one we've been waiting for. Doesn't mean you still don't have to go through the crucifixion. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. But you have to go through the crucifixion or the death for the birth or the resurrection or the rising to the new level. That is the Spirit. It is the life. It is the flow. It is the movement of the divine that makes the difference. But you got to be willing to change beyond your position. It's a Catholic story. I guess it's a Catholic story. It's about a guy who loved to cook hamburgers on Friday evening barbecue in the backyard. That was his spring thing that he loved. And the neighborhood was mostly Catholics, and those were in the days in which you were not allowed to eat meat on Friday, particularly during the Lent season. And they could just smell the wonderful burgers wafting through the backyard Friday afternoon. And they just couldn't take it anymore. They went to the priest and said, you know what, Joe, our neighbor next door, he's barbecuing, and it's driving us crazy. Would you go talk to him, please? So the priest went, he talked to him and said, hey, Joe, why don't you ever think about becoming a Catholic? Why don't you come on in and take some classes? And Joe did. He came in, he took some classes, he studied. He finally went to the Mass, and he stood there, and the priest took out the holy water, said, you were born in one religion, you were raised in one religion, but now you're Catholic. Boom, and there you go. And it was good. And so the neighbors were pleased and happy until Friday night came along, and they smelled that hamburger stuff wafting through the backyard. They called the priest, said, come on out here, come talk to Joe. And the priest came on down ready to scold him, and he just stood there and wondered what Joe was doing. And what he was doing is he had this bottle of holy water, and he was spraying it on it and said, you were born a cow, you were raised a cow, but now you're a fish. There are so many answers when you are living in the absolute that exceeds your controlled perspective on how it is supposed to be. If you can just open yourself to the infinite possibilities that Spirit seeks to bring as it passes through your world, you can rise triumphant into the new expression in your life. If you're willing to recognize for something to be right, for a solution to emerge, one person doesn't necessarily need to be wrong and then someone else to be right. How often do we look for solutions to make you wrong? You're right. It doesn't need to be that way. There could be the emergence of something greater that is the result of that conversation if you're open to that. But you've got to be open. You've got to be willing to expand your mind. And you start by thinking of the people in your world. Imagine if you spent as much time thinking and blessing people that brought gifts into your life as you do complaining and blaming individuals that don't. How much different your world would be. That's what it means to step outside of the box in which you were raised in. What perspective have you been raised in that is no longer serving you? Then the old way will die away. There was a monk who wanted to go find the Buddha. And so he committed to going on a pilgrimage that went on for many years to the point where he finally found the land, the country in which the Buddha lived. And so he got a boatman to row him across the river to the land on the other side. And as he was going across in deep contemplation, looking out, he could see coming down the river, I don't know, like a log. But as it got closer, what he discovered is that it was a body. It was a corpse. And as it got closer and closer to the boat, he began to look over. And as he looked at that dead corpse in the water, he recognized it as himself. And in that moment and in that realization, he just broke down into tears and sobbed. And in that moment, the light came and he was liberated. Now, besides being a Zen story with bizarre meanings and significance that you got to actually figure out on your own, and something to think about when you leave here. It's just that, for me, it's like you come to realize that we get so caught up and identified with our body that we think this is who we are. We get caught up with our story. We get caught up with that ego. We get caught up with all those things I was talking about that we needed to relinquish, our anger, our position, our pain, and our things. And all of a sudden, when we recognize that that physical body is not really the essence of our being, and when we can die to that, we are now open to the greater yet to be. We're open to the absolute. We're open to something that the mind had not yet conceived, because there's something far greater that is seeking to express itself in our world, and I'm willing to let go. It's no longer about what I'm trying to pray for, but the quality of the divine that I'm working on embracing. All of a sudden, I recognize it's not the destination, but as we all know, it is the journey from here to there that makes up the difference. And we get so caught up on this journey, accumulating this knowledge, and there's a big difference between knowledge and wisdom. You know, knowledge is very much rewarded in our society. You just watch the TV game shows. If you got the trivia stuff in your brain, you can win washing machines and cars and press-on nails and cruises and Tupperware if you're really lucky. And so all of a sudden, this knowledge will help us in the landscape of this world to acquire things, and it has its place, but the wisdom will help you in your soulscape. It will help you in discovering the value of your being. Knowledge may help you get from San Diego to Las Vegas, which is important to know, but wisdom will help you go from fear to love, which I think is even more important. And as we begin to trust that something that is inside of ourself, that's something that wants to rise from the ashes. At one time it had been celebrated. At another time we were told you can't trust it because look at the trouble it got you in. And another time it rose triumphant. It is your time to activate that greater yet to be by honoring your intuitive self, your higher self, your spiritual self. And you do that with just the little things. I can remember this one retreat I was doing, and it was in the afternoon. I was sitting out under the trees, and somebody was walking by, and she asked me, did I know what time it was? Well, I don't wear a watch. I don't even carry a cell phone. And so I said, I know. I think it's maybe about 2:15. Right? And she said, no, it can't be 2:15. It was 2:15 a half hour ago. It's like, what in the world are you asking me for if you knew it was 2:15 a half hour ago? But that's how we dishonor our intuitive self, is that we need validation from someone outside. We need validation from that body that is now dead and going along. I encourage us to listen to that spirit that was within us. Goethe, the German philosopher, scientist, Christian mystic of the 17th, 18th century, he said, when you learn to trust yourself, you will find life. When you learn to trust yourself, that's when you're going to find life. Otherwise, you're stuck in the spot hoping or assuming, trying to control, trying to boss things around. As you begin to trust life, you begin to have it validated. You begin to become more familiar with it. And when you go from Rosanna to people shouting, crucify him, crucify him, man, that's a big shift. Something Mark Nepo said, and he wrote the book of Awakening. He's a modern-day philosopher, if you would. It was #1 New York Times bestseller a couple years back. And he said, there are no wrong turns, only unexpected paths. And if you can remember that what is showing up for you that may not feel good or feel right is not wrong. It is what is, and it may be unexpected. But when you can embrace the absolute, you've got to know it's all part of the divine picture and the divine vibration. And if I can let go of the image I have mocked up in my mind or my prayer requests or the molds that I'm thinking it should look like and allow that body to float on by, then what begins to happen is that spirit will pass over those faux pas or challenges that I've been focusing on and begin to carry me to the promised land. I've got to recognize I may have some work ahead of me. I may have a desert to walk through. I may have to deal with some challenges, but it's not about the destination. It is about living and moving and having my being in that divine presence. And that's when the magic happens. I mean, we've all done our spiritual practice when we have taken a beautiful word of God or a mystical phrase and just sat with it in contemplative meditation. Yes? This means yes. I was hoping a little more resounding yes. We talk about, good, okay. So when you take, that spiritual piece, that nugget, and you sit there and you contemplate it, and your mind does its thing, but have you noticed at a certain point, it takes you beyond the mind doing its thing, and you begin to have an experience of that which is profound, that created those words in the first place. You come to a place of silence and quietude and a deeper understanding. You begin to know beyond words. You begin to know beyond the brain. You begin to have this deep sense that all is well, or all is clear, or I'm connected with the absolute, and it's in this place of a deeper knowing that all of a sudden snap and healing happens, the body is made whole, or the abundance flows, or the tumor dissolves, or the new home shows up, or the relationship turns right. It's like something happens, not because I'm doing it, but because I have taken a piece of spirit and has allowed me to go to a place that I was able to leap off into a deeper realm. You've had that experience, right? Okay. So, I want you to take the challenge that you have. You don't have to fess up to what it is right now. But it's an assignment I want you to take that challenge. And whether it's a crucifixion, whether it's an exile, whether it is a desert, and take that as your spiritual practice and to sit with it and allow your mind to do its dance and begin to show you and think about all sorts of things. But to sit there to the place where all of a sudden it becomes quiet, just like the beautiful words of the divine, and you enter into the silence and you begin to have a feeling, and the Spirit begins to unfold, and the qualities of the divine begin to fill that space, and anything unlike it is just dissipated, annihilated, dissolved, neutralized, eliminated, not because I'm trying to tell the universe how to do, but it's just anything unlike it will be gone. And if the Spirit is absolute, that means it is all in Spirit. What we call good and what we call bad is all within the absolute. What I call crucifixion and resurrection is all within the Spirit. What I call the desert experience or the land of fruit and honey is all within the Spirit. So anything can lead you there. So if you have something that's captivating your mind and your thinking, don't try to slough it off. Bring it up to your awareness and sit with it and say, God, reveal yourself. Let me know something that is stronger and deeper. And this body will float away and be carried away. And what will remain is the wonderful expression and the experience, the presence of God where it is needed most in your life. God bless you as you take this to practice. I love you. Hey, let's keep it going as we bring Cahill and Delene back to our stage.
We have a song called Wondrous Eyes that Cahill and I wrote, and it could be affectionately called The Eyes of a Child. If we live our lives with a sense of wonder, everything that happens, just keep that sense of wonder and awe in us, our lives will be a lot happier. Wondrous eyes, just open your eyes. Wondrous eyes, magnified across the great divide.
It's as if I am seeing life for the first time. It's as if I've been blind, locked up in time. Have I been dreaming, or is this the dream unreeling? Like a lightning bolt through the sky.
the great divide. It's as if I've been walking round with a blindfold. It's as if someone suddenly pulled it away. Now why have I been crying when I could have been high flying like a falcon through the sky? Wondrous eyes, just open them wide. Wondrous eyes, magnified across the great divide. Wondrous eyes, just open your eyes. Wondrous eyes, magnified across the great divide. Wondrous eyes, wondrous eyes. Thank you. Thank you.